You know, we often think when they settle this country of how hard all the men come in here and all these families and how hard they had it. But this one's dedicated to all the women, the pioneer women that settled this country. They worked just as much, if not harder, than the man of the family. So this little video is dedicated to the pioneer women of the old Appalachias. Now these old beautiful Appalachias, they're as ancient as time itself. Some of the oldest mountains in the world, I'm being told, at least among them. And how vast and how wild it was, especially 200 or 300 years ago. Just so much wilderness. And it's hard to believe these men and women come in here trying to start a life. Now the first people in here, of course, was a Native American. And the first European or settlers come in here were mostly just long hunters, exploring the country, hunting, looking the country over. And of course they met the Native Americans. Some were friendly, but some were not. They resented white men being in their country, and they didn't like it. But anyway, they looked over this vast country and how beautiful it was, and they wanted to start a life here, claim their own little piece of land and build a home, a family. So they started out, all the land was taken up around the east coast of 13 colonies and stuff. And really what got it started was the Transylvania Purchase of 1775. Some say it was legit, some say it wasn't. But this started the Wilderness Road. Daniel Boone blazed it. And here it is. Come down out of Virginia, Shenandoah Valley, to the Wilderness Road, on up into the wilds of Kentucky. And they brought their family. Group after group come through here, into this dark and bloody ground. Brought their family. They tried to come in little groups and big groups for protection. And they crossed little rivers like this and streams, and it wasn't too bad. But some of the rivers, especially certain times of year, were really raging from all the rain. And they'd have to cross some of them like this. Someplace they couldn't find a crossing, they'd have to build a raft or just swim across. And some of them time of year, it's just water was too high. A lot of them were swept away. A lot of women died. A lot of children died, even men too, and animals. It was some hard times crossing some of these waterways. A lot of them, like I said, they'd get together in certain areas and they'd meet up and make big groups like wagon trains. They may be 50, 60, or a couple of hundred of them. And they would do this in numbers for safety. But some done it alone. Just one little family or a couple of little families together would come down this wilderness road, and this is when they was vulnerable. They'd come into these wilds here, not knowing what's around the next curve, or what's in these wild, vast forests watching them. Of course, the Native Americans watching them come in here. Some of them didn't bother them, but some of them, they ambushed them. So you never knowed what was in these wild mountains back in them days. It was just wilderness, wild country. And a lot of them, these little settlers, were ambushed by Indians, killed every one of them. Here's a little story in Levi Jackson State Park around London, Kentucky. I even heard a story of some woman had a baby in a hollow log while this was going on. Sad. This is so sad. It's hard to watch your man being killed and your baby's children being killed and scalped right in front of you. This is horrible, but this is the way it was back in them days. And these women come in here with their men, trying to build a home, how to hack our way in these old dense forests, trying to make a living. And a lot of them times they would start out in these little forts and communities till they could, for safety, for protection from the Native Americans. But a lot of Native Americans was really good friends with them. But when they got off to themselves at first, they would always seem like you would have tragedy like this. They'd be out working the land and a whole family would be massacred. That was the way it was back in them days. They lived hard. Some of them didn't make it. Completely, whole families wiped out. A lot of them intermarried, made friends with the Native Americans, and married into each other. A lot of them done it. This is some of my ancestors. And they built homes like this out in these wilderness. This is one of the better ones. Now, these old men were hard. They wasn't scared of nothing. But these women were just as hard as they was. And they wasn't scared of nothing either. They'd fight for what they believed in, what they had. And together, they tried to make a home in these old mountains. All up and down these Appalachias, the same story. And these old families, they raised their family hard. And they watched their kids grow too. Some kids didn't make it. That's just the way it was. Homes like this, lived in these pioneer homes, fireplaces, the woman working herself to death just trying to provide for the family and put meat on the table. And these old women, they are the backbone of the family. And they learn all their things from their elders, especially the herbs and stuff in the mountains, from these Native Americans. They knowed every plant, what was good for this, what was good for that, and they learned from them. Now, back in them days, there wasn't no doctor to come around the house and check on you if you was ailing and stuff, especially if you was expecting a little one. That just didn't happen. They had it on their own. This is just a depiction of how they used to do stuff like that. But most of them, some woman around the house, a lot of times they didn't have another woman at first in them days. The man would have to help, or they just lay there and have that baby. And some didn't make it. But as time went on, they had what they called midwives. They would help each other have these children. That's all they had. There wasn't no doctors in them days. And them was times was hard. These little old babies, a lot of them never made it. That's so sad. So many a woman and a baby died too in childbirth. And if they did live, something would be, baby would get sick in a few days or a few months and die. It's so sad to watch your children die like that, nothing you can do. Now, I go around these old pioneer graveyards and I see all kinds of little baby graves. You don't even know who they are or when they died. You're lucky to see a little headstone rock on them. Old pioneers back in the hard times. But good thing the Lord knows who every one of them is and where they're at. Now, these old mountains are so isolated. It don't matter if you're at the southern end of the Appalachians or the northern end. They're so isolated back in them days. You was on your own. And these people, they knew it. They had to make it or die one. And these women knew it. They're going to take care of their family and their man. They're going to make it or they're going to die trying. They worked hard just trying to keep a meal on the table while their man's out in the field or working. They worked really hard at it. Packing water to the house, the spring, creek, wherever they got it from back in them days. And yes, they done all the washing by hand. There wasn't no modern conveniences. This was hard work. every few days or a week. And they're lucky this is probably in the latter times. Usually they just beat them out on a rock at a creek. They didn't have nothing. And if you had a good-sized family, it didn't matter what time of year it was, you had wash day. Look here. That froze on the line. But they done what they had to do. They even made their own soap to wash with. For washing their body or washing their clothes, they made it all. That was just the way it was. And yep, they had their own grocery store. If they could, they had their own livestock, their own garden. Here's one of our elders cleaning a chicken for dinner. This is a commonplace. I've seen my grandmother wring many a neck on a chicken. And it don't matter if you had one on the way or not, you still had your chores to do. Made your own butter, milked your own cow. This is just part of life in these mountains. And yes, they had big families. And especially if you had a lot of land, they liked big families because they all worked together as one to survive. So they wanted a big family. That's just the way it was. And they canned everything. They didn't waste nothing. This is how they survived. What they couldn't eat, they stored it for hard times. They never had a want that way. If they had land to raise a garden, this is what they done. String beans, green beans, just string them up. All the time working. Something to do with eating or just surviving in these old mountains. And like I said, when they got their garden, the late fall, really the harvest come in, they prepared to can everything. Everything. From apples to corn, green beans, anything. Kraut. That was the way life was. And that got them by in times like this. In cold winter time. When you ain't got no garden. Now these people too, like I said, they was isolated. They depended on themselves. They made their own clothes, own materials and fabrics, quilts, clothing, hand spun it, these women. And they were good at it too. But you know that was a lot of hard work, painstaking work. And here's some pictures of them just making it the old-fashioned way, weaving it. Bless their heart. They knowed what they was doing. They was passed down to them from their mothers and grandmothers, and they tried to pass it on. And not only that, they were trying to teach their kids too. Bless their heart. All the things that they having to do, these women tried to teach their kids how to read and write back in them days. All their traditions, pass it on. And God bless a God-fearing woman. She tried to teach them the Bible, all the stories of the Bible, and the moralities of life. A lot of people didn't own land. They wasn't lucky enough to have land. But they had to live some way, and the only way to make a living in these mountains, if you didn't leave them, was working in a coal mine. And a lot of families lived in mining camps, just like this. And they had a hard time too. Man was underground working all the time. They packed water, and they lived in this company housing. And a lot of times they wasn't treated fairly. Some of them had it hard. Pictures like this. This is in southeast Kentucky. Bunch of hungry babies. A man underground working himself to death. If he didn't get killed in an accident, black lung finally got him. That's just the way it was in these mountains. That was a living. People don't understand that. And some of these kids, some of these men, they started when they was 10, 11 years old, working these mines. Had no choice. They was either that or starved to death. So they went to work. That's the way it was back in them days. And sad, some of them didn't live old enough to really have a family. Accidents and all that. And if they did, black lung took them later on. That's just sad about the mining industry. And these great women, our pioneer women, they would always care for our elders as they growed older, knowing that that's all they had was you, taking care of the family. And the men's out on this farm, back on the farms, working these farms, trying to make a garden, to make a living for the family. That's just the way it was. And the woman of the house full of kids, trying to cook, trying to teach them too at the same time. She had a hard job, just as important as the man did. Always had a house full of babies, if not expecting another one. But they made it. And they worked when needed be, and their man was busy. If it's chopping wood, they could chop a wood just as much as good as a man could. Drive a nail, whatever they had to do, they could do. That makes them so special. And they didn't have no modern conveniences. Didn't have no fancy bathroom. This was the bathroom of the day, an old outhouse. And an old slop jar under your bed at night. But they helped the community. They worked together as needed when time was needed to help each other. Some other family in need, they got together. Bless their hearts. And these God-fearing women, they always provided for people. If there was a death in the family or somebody was in need, they come about and they done what needed to be done. And it didn't matter what color you was in these mountains. Everybody had a hard time. Some had it worse than others. Some didn't make it. A lot of them left these mountains. But a lot of them stayed. So they had to be self-sufficient. But God bless these pioneer women. If it wasn't for them, I don't think we'd be what we was today. But these times are going away. Our elders are leaving us, our great generation, and I hope that y'all pass these traditions on to your family. So I want to thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little story of our women of Appalachia. So God bless, take care, and I'll see you next time.